She walked in like she was born to run the place. Red lips, red heels, and a last name powerful enough to bend reality. Me, I was just the person who designed the entire $2.1 billion system she was about to showcase. The only problem, it would crash at exactly 5:01 p.m., and no one but me knew it. They thought they could erase me from the story, but they didn't know I was the one holding the pen. My name is Rachel Monroe. For 14 years, I've been the beating heart of Northbeam Technologies, chief engineer, solution architect for the AI logistics division that put us on the map. I built this company's future with my bare hands, line of code by line of code, while executives in corner offices took credit for my vision. Until this morning, when everything changed. I arrived at 7:15 a.m., as usual. Our headquarters occupied the top 8 floors of a glass tower in the financial district, with my office situated on the 47th floor, a corner space I'd earned after bringing in the Taiwanese semiconductor deal 3 years ago. The morning light bathed my workspace in gold, reflecting off the 3 innovation awards displayed on my credenza. My assistant, Mira, intercepted me at the door, coffee in hand and worry in her eyes. Rachel, there's a mandatory all hands in the Horizon room at 8. Marcus didn't tell you. Marcus Zhang, our CEO, had indeed not told me anything. Strange, considering I'd spent 2 hours on a video call with him just yesterday, finalizing the demonstration schedule for our largest potential client to date, Volantis Freight. Consortium, a $2. $1 billion contract that would revolutionize global shipping logistics with our proprietary AI infrastructure. No, I said, setting down my laptop bag. What's it regarding? Mira's eyes darted to the hallway. New executive appointment, that's all I know. I nodded, thanking her for the coffee. As she left, I quickly checked my calendar, still packed with final preparations for tomorrow's Volantis demo. 14 minutes later, I walked into the Horizon room to find it already filled with my colleagues. An unusual energy humming through the space. Marcus stood at the front, his silver hair perfectly coiffed as always, flanked by 2 people. One was Jeffrey Blake, our longtime board chairman and Marcus's oldest friend. The other was a woman I'd never seen before, mid-30s, immaculately dressed in a crimson power suit, with the kind of confidence that comes from never having been told no. My stomach tightened as I found a spot along the back wall. Good morning, Northbeam family, Marcus began, his voice carrying that practiced warmth that had charmed investors for decades. Today marks an exciting new chapter in our company's journey. As we prepare to finalize the Volantis partnership, we're strengthening our executive team with world-class talent. He gestured to the woman beside him. I'm thrilled to introduce Savannah Ellington Blake, who joins us as our new Global Infrastructure Director. My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. Global Infrastructure Director. That was my position. Had been for the past 6 years. Savannah brings invaluable experience from her time at Blackstone Equity and holds an MBA from Wharton. She'll be overseeing our entire technological infrastructure and leading the Volantis integration process. The room erupted in polite applause while I stood paralyzed. Marcus's eyes briefly met mine before shifting away. Additionally, he continued, Rachel Monroe will be supporting the documentation transition and focusing on specialized development projects. Supporting transition, the corporate equivalent of being taken out back and shot. I felt 200 pairs of eyes flicker toward me, then quickly away. The instinctive avoidance of witnessing someone's public execution. After a few more platitudes about exciting futures and synergistic opportunities, the meeting dispersed. I remained rooted to my spot as Marcus approached with Savannah in tow. Rachel, he said, clapping a hand on my shoulder. I'd like you to meet Savannah. I'm sure you two will work wonderfully together. Up close, I could see that Savannah's smile never quite reached her eyes. I've heard so much about your technical expertise, Rachel. I look forward to your insights during this transition. Transition, I repeated. Interesting choice of word for something I'm hearing about for the first time. Marcus's smile tightened. We can discuss the details later. Savannah needs to be brought up to speed on Volantis immediately. They're expecting her to lead tomorrow's demonstration. Tomorrow's demonstration, I echoed. The one I've been architecting for 11 months. And your foundation will be acknowledged, Marcus assured me, already guiding Savannah away. I've asked ET to transfer your documentation access to Savannah's account. Please make yourself available to answer any questions she might have. And just like that, they walked away, leaving me standing alone in the rapidly emptying conference room, holding a cooling coffee I no longer wanted. Back in my office, I discovered my security clearance had already been downgraded. My executive dashboard access, gone. My administrative privileges for the Volantis project, revoked. The system I had built from nothing now treated me like an outsider. I stared at my computer screen, watching pop-up notifications inform me of my digital demotion. 14 years of loyalty repaid with a few keystrokes. The injustice of it burned through my veins, but beneath the anger lay something else, confusion. This made no strategic sense. I was the only person who fully understood the Volantis system architecture. The only one who could navigate its complexities. Removing me days before the most important demonstration in company history was beyond reckless. It was suicidal. Unless there was something I wasn't seeing. A notification pinged on my screen, a company-wide email announcing Savannah as the featured presenter at next month's Global Tech Summit in Singapore. The summit I had been preparing to headline for the past 6 months. The email made no mention of me at all. It was becoming clear, this wasn't a transition, it was an erasure. I closed my eyes, my thoughts racing back 3 years to the beginning of what would become the North Beam Logistics revolution. It had started in my living room, with diagrams sketched on the wall, much to my landlord's later dismay. I'd envisioned an AI system that could not only track global shipping in real time, but predict congestion points, reroute automatically, and adapt to everything from weather patterns to political instabilities. When I'd first pitched it to the board, Jeffrey Blake had called it ambitious but unrealistic. Marcus had been more diplomatic, suggesting we table the concept for future consideration. Only Diane Mercer, our then CTO, had seen its potential, allocating a small skunkworks budget that let me prove the concept. For the next 18 months, I'd worked 16-hour days, building the prototype that would eventually become the backbone of our current system. When the first successful test came in, Marcus suddenly became my biggest champion, touting his company's innovation to anyone who would listen. The system expanded, evolved, and exceeded even my wildest expectations. We landed contracts with shipping giants across Asia and Europe. My team grew from 3 people to 30, then 100. We operated across 14 countries and 4 time zones. I spent more nights in airport hotels than in my own apartment. And then came Volantis, the Holy Grail, a consortium representing 43% of global freight, looking to revolutionize their entire logistics infrastructure. Landing them would transform North Beam from a successful innovator to an industry titan. I personally led the pitch meetings, flying between Madrid and Tokyo 7 times in 5 months to navigate the complex stakeholder landscape. I wrote the security protocols, configured the infrastructure, and laid the foundation for a cross-national AI logistics system unlike anything the industry had seen. And now, with the finish line in sight, I was being shunted aside so the chairman's daughter-in-law could take the credit. A knock at my door pulled me from my thoughts. Allie Walsh, one of my junior engineers, stood in the doorway, uncertainty written across her face. "Come in, Allie," I said, minimizing the screen displaying my digital demotion. She closed the door behind her. "I just heard about the change. Everyone's talking about it." "I'm sure they are." "It doesn't make sense," she said, dropping her voice. "The Volantis system is your baby. No one else understands the security protocols or the neural architecture like you do." I appreciated her loyalty, but saw no benefit in dragging her into my professional execution. These decisions happen at levels well above our pay grades. "There's something else," she said, glancing at the door. "They've moved tomorrow's demonstration." "Moved it? To when?" "Not when, where. Allie shifted uncomfortably. They're setting up the servers at the downtown showcase branch. For a more immersive visual experience, according to the email. I felt a cold wave wash over me. The downtown showcase branch was our glossy technological theater, designed to impress visitors with holographic displays and interactive demonstrations. It was all style, minimal substance, and critically. It fell outside the geographical boundaries I'd established for the Volantis system. That's not possible, I said. The system is geo-fenced to this building's secure server rooms. It won't operate properly if moved. That's what I thought. But when I mentioned it to the setup team, they said Ms. Blake had signed off on a server relocation. I pulled up the system logs, my access to which, miraculously, hadn't yet been revoked. There it was, a server transfer request approved by Savannah Ellington Blake at 2:13 a.m., less than 6 hours after she'd presumably become my boss. And apparently before she'd even set foot in the building. This wasn't just a red flag, it was a 5-alarm fire. Allie, I said carefully, did they consult any of the original development team about this move? She shook her head. The directive came straight from executive level. We're just supposed to make it happen. And who's leading the technical setup at the showcase branch? A team from Prismatic Solutions, external contractors who wouldn't know about the geofence protocols hard-coded into the system's DNA, who wouldn't understand that removing the servers from their secure location would trigger a series of fail-safes designed to protect our intellectual property and client data. Fail-safes that would, in exactly 26 hours and 17 minutes, cause the entire demonstration to collapse spectacularly. I should have said something. I should have sent an urgent email detailing the technical impossibility of what they were attempting. I should have stormed into Marcus's office and explained that they were steering the company toward disaster. But as I sat there, watching my legacy being stripped away piece by digital piece, a different thought emerged. Why should I save them from themselves? Why should I prevent the very disaster they were so determinedly engineering? Thank you for telling me, ally, I said, my voice steady. I appreciate your concern. After she left, I sat motionless in my chair, contemplating the choice before me. I could intervene, preventing a public failure that would tank the Volantis deal and likely send our stock plummeting. Or I could do nothing and watch as the system I'd built demonstrated, in the most dramatic fashion possible, that it could not function without its creator. The ethical engineer in me warred with the wounded human being. The former knew I should prevent a catastrophic failure that could impact hundreds of jobs. The latter wanted vindication, wanted them to understand exactly what they'd thrown away. My phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. Lobby cafe in 15 minutes. Come alone. It's about tomorrow. I debated ignoring it, but curiosity won out. 15 minutes later, I sat at a corner table in the bustling lobby cafe, watching as Alex Dreyer, our senior financial analyst, approached with 2 coffees. Alex and I had a complicated history. 3 years ago, I'd helped him resolve a potentially career-ending audit discrepancy by recovering server logs. That proved the error had originated in an automated system, not through his negligence. He'd never forgotten the debt. I heard what happened, he said without preamble, sliding a coffee toward me. It's worse than you think. Hard to imagine how. He leaned forward. Savannah isn't just Jeffrey's daughter-in-law. She's his new protégé. They've been planning this move for months. Planning what move, exactly? Your removal and her installation. They've already promised Volantis that she'll be their primary contact going forward. They're positioning her as the architect of the entire system. The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. That's absurd. Anyone with technical knowledge will see through that immediately. Maybe, but it doesn't matter. Once Volantis signs, the narrative becomes reality. He paused. There's something else. The server relocation? It wasn't Savannah's idea. It was Jeffrey's. He specifically wanted a more theatrical venue for the Volantis executives. Despite the technical risks, Alex's expression confirmed my suspicions. Your warnings about the geofence protocols were in the technical documentation. They either didn't read them or didn't care. So they're walking straight into a catastrophe of their own making. Yes. His eyes met mine. And you still have override authority in the system. You could prevent it. I studied him carefully. Why are you telling me this? Because I believe in ethics, he said, but I also believe in justice. As he stood to leave, he placed a business card on the table. It wasn't his Northbeam card, but rather one for Evelyn Glass. A name I vaguely recognized from financial news circles. A corporate attorney specializing in mergers and acquisitions. If you decide not to be their savior, Alex said quietly, you might want to prepare for what comes after. I spent the rest of the day in a fog, mechanically responding to emails and fielding questions from team members too polite to mention. My obvious demotion. At 5:30 p.m., I watched through the glass walls of my office as Savannah led a procession of executives past, headed for what had been scheduled as my final briefing before the Volantis demonstration. No one glanced my way. At 7:45 p.m., long after most employees had departed, I made my decision. I wasn't going to warn them. I wasn't going to save them. For once, the consequences of their actions would fall squarely on their shoulders, not mine. But if I was going to let them fail, I needed to be prepared for the aftermath. I called the number on Evelyn Glass's card. Ms. Monroe, she answered, as if she'd been expecting my call. I was wondering when I'd hear from you. What did Alex tell you about my situation? Enough to know that Northbeam Technologies is about to experience a significant value correction. The question is, what do you intend to do about it? I'm not sure yet. Then allow me to offer a perspective. You've spent 14 years building value for a company that's now attempting to discard you. Perhaps it's time to reclaim that value. Meaning what, exactly? Meaning that tomorrow, when Northbeam's stock inevitably plummets following a failed demonstration, someone with foresight could be positioned to acquire a controlling interest at a significant discount. The audacity of the suggestion left me momentarily speechless. You're talking about a hostile takeover of a billion-dollar tech company by me. I'm talking about justice with a capital ROI. Evelyn replied smoothly. You've been accumulating stock options for 14 years. Correct, and I'd wager you've been too busy working to actually cash them out. She wasn't wrong. My portfolio, largely untouched since my hiring, had grown substantially as Northbeam's value increased. Even so, it wouldn't be enough for a controlling interest. Not alone, no. But combined with the right investment vehicle and strategic limited partners, it becomes possible. She paused, particularly if the stock drops below a certain threshold, say 14,030 C per share. The specificity of that number told me she'd already run the calculations. And you just happen to have such an investment vehicle ready to go. Let's just say I've helped other innovative founders reclaim what was rightfully theirs. If you're interested, I can have the paperwork for Crescent Origin Holdings ready by morning. I hesitated, the enormity of what she was suggesting sinking in. I'd need to think about this. Of course, but don't think too long. Windows of opportunity, like revenge, are best served with precise timing. After hanging up, I sat in my darkened office, watching the city lights flicker on across the skyline. What Evelyn proposed wasn't just risky, it was transformative. A complete reversal of fortune that would either resurrect my career or burn it to ashes. I pulled up the system logs one more time, confirming what I already knew. The servers had been physically relocated to the downtown showcase branch at 3:42 p.m. The geofence protocols were still active. Come tomorrow's demonstration, the system would run for exactly 5 seconds before detecting its unauthorized location and initiating a complete shutdown. The Volantis executives would witness not a revolutionary logistics system, but a spectacular technological failure. The deal would collapse. The stock would plummet. And in the aftermath, someone would need to be held responsible. It wouldn't be me. I had the system logs showing I'd been systematically excluded from the preparation process. I had documentation proving the geofence protocols had been clearly outlined and summarily ignored. I had evidence that I'd been deliberately sidelined by the very people now positioning themselves to take credit for my work. For once, I wouldn't be the one cleaning up someone else's mess. I'd be the one watching them drown in the consequences of their own arrogance. I sent a text to Evelyn. Let's talk about Crescent Origin Holdings. The next morning, I arrived at the office dressed in the same power suit I'd worn to pitch Volantis the first time. ALC, calculated choice that wouldn't go unnoticed by those with eyes to see. I moved through the day with mechanical precision, answering technical questions when asked, offering no unsolicited advice. At 11:32 a.m., Evelyn's courier delivered a package to my office. Inside was a folder containing ownership documents for Crescent Origin Holdings, a shell company now funded primarily by my converted Northbeam stock options. The documents outlined a trigger mechanism if Northbeam's share price dropped below $14.30, automated purchasing protocols would activate, acquiring available shares until a controlling interest was secured. All I needed to do was sign. This was my point of no return. Once committed, I would either emerge as the phoenix from Northbeam's ashes or burn alongside it. The engineer in me calculated risk factors and probability matrices. The human in me remembered Marcus's dismissive hand on my shoulder and Savannah's cold eyes as she claimed my legacy as her own. I signed the papers. At 2:15 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Alex. They're setting up now. S seems nervous. Keeps asking about system reset protocols. She should be nervous, I thought. She was about to present technology she fundamentally did not understand to people whose business she desperately wanted. At 3:01 p.m., I received an automated calendar notification for the Volantis demonstration, an event I was no longer invited to attend. I deleted it without response. At 4:30 p.m., I closed my laptop, told Mira I'd be unavailable for the remainder of the day, and walked to a coffee shop 3 blocks from the downtown Showcase branch. I ordered a latte and claimed a window seat with a clear view of the building's entrance, where sleek cars were already depositing elegantly dressed executives. My phone buzzed again at 4:52 p.m. Another text from Alex. Starting in 8 minutes, full house. Volantis CEO and CTO in front row. I didn't respond. Instead, I sipped my coffee and watched the digital clock on my phone count down the minutes. In a different universe, I might have been the one standing before the Volantis executives, showcasing the system I'd poured my soul into creating. In this universe, I was an outcast, watching from afar as others claimed my triumph. Except it wouldn't be a triumph, it would be a reckoning. At exactly 5:01 p.m., I imagined Savannah activating the live demonstration, probably with a practiced flourish and confident smile. I imagined the initial visualizations appearing on the massive screens, global shipping routes, illuminated like glowing arteries, AI predictive models spinning in 3 dimensions. And then, at precisely 5:01:07 p.m., I knew every screen would flash red. Error 601, geofence violation. System lockdown initiated. The entire demonstration, the entire system, would freeze, then shut down completely. Security protocols engaging to protect the proprietary technology from what the system would interpret as an unauthorized access attempt. At 5:04 p.m., my phone exploded with notifications. First came urgent texts from multiple team members. System crashed. What's happening? Can you help remotely? Then breaking news alerts from financial outlets. Northbeam tech demo fails catastrophically. Before Volantis execs, potential 2.1B deal in jeopardy as Northbeam AI system crashes. At 5:17 p.m., Northbeam's stock began to slide as the news spread. At 5:23 p.m., Marcus himself called. I watched his name flash on my screen, then sent him to voicemail. At 5:35 p.m., Reuters reported that Volantis had invoked the critical failure withdrawal clause in their preliminary agreement, effectively killing the deal. By 5:45 p.m., Northbeam's stock had dropped 11% and was still falling as after-hours trading continued to punish the company for its very public failure. At 6:02 p.m., I received an email from Evelyn Glass. Threshold approaching. Prepare for transition. I finished my coffee, left a generous tip, and walked unhurriedly back toward Northbeam headquarters. By the time I reached the building, Northbeam's stock had fallen to $15.22 per share, still above our trigger threshold, but plummeting fast as institutional investors offloaded positions. The lobby was chaos. Employees huddled in concerned groups, smartphones in hand, watching the company's value evaporate in real time. No one noticed me slip into an elevator and ascend to the executive floor. I wasn't surprised to find Marcus's office empty. He would be at the showcase branch, desperately trying to salvage the unsalvageable. Instead, I went to my own office and methodically began downloading key files, not proprietary company information, but evidence. Email threads showing my systematic exclusion from critical meetings. Server logs documenting my removed permissions. Technical documentation clearly outlining the geofence protocols that had been ignored. As I worked, notifications continued to flood my phone. Northbeam stock, 1478. Then, 14.63. Then 1442. At precisely 7:13 p.m., it hit 1429. Seconds later, Evelyn called. "It's happening," she said without preamble. "The acquisition protocols have initiated within 30 minutes. Crescent Origin Holdings will be the majority shareholder of Northbeam Technologies. Any regulatory issues? None. The purchases are distributed through multiple channels to avoid triggering SEC oversight. By morning, the transition will be complete and legally unassailable." I thanked her and hung up, a strange calm settling over me. After 14 years of building someone else's empire, I was about to claim my own. At 9:47 p.m., with Northbeam stock stabilized at a dismal $13.84, Evelyn confirmed what still seemed impossible through Crescent Origin Holdings. I now effectively controlled 51.2% of Northbeam Technologies. I was the company. The realization didn't fully sink in until the following morning, when I arrived at the office to find Mira waiting with a stack of legal documents. "These came by courier for you," she said, confusion evident in her voice. "From the corporate counsel's office, they're marked urgent." The documents confirmed my new reality. As the controlling shareholder, I had the authority to restructure the company's leadership however I saw fit. I could fire Marcus. I could dismiss the board. I could reshape Northbeam in whatever image I chose. But first, I had a meeting to attend. At 10 a.m., I walked into the emergency board meeting already in progress. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Marcus sat at the head of the table, his usually immaculate appearance now haggard from a sleepless night. Jeffrey Blake looked equally disheveled. Savannah was notably absent. Conversation ceased as I entered. Marcus's expression shifted from confusion to irritation. "Rachel, we're in the middle of a crisis response meeting. Whatever you need will have to wait." I smiled pleasantly and took a seat at the opposite end of the table. "Actually, I think you'll find I'm exactly where I need to be." Jeffrey leaned forward. "What is the meaning of this interruption?" "This isn't an interruption, Jeffrey. It's new management introducing itself." I slid the corporate counsel's documents across the table. As of 9:47 p.m. yesterday, Crescent Origin Holdings acquired a controlling interest in Northbeam Technologies. As the primary stakeholder in Crescent Origin, I now effectively control this company. The room erupted in disbelief and outrage. Marcus snatched up the documents, his face draining of color as he scanned their contents. "This is impossible," he sputtered. "It's corporate theft." "Actually, it's completely legal," I corrected him. "When you publicly failed the Volantis demonstration and tanked the company's stock value, you created a buying opportunity. I simply took advantage of it." "You knew," Jeffrey said, his voice low and dangerous. "You knew the system would fail, and you said nothing." "I designed the system, Jeffrey. I created the geofence protocols that shut it down when it detected an unauthorized location. Protocols that were clearly documented in materials your daughter-in-law should have reviewed. Before attempting to demonstrate technology she didn't understand." Marcus slammed his hand on the table. This is sabotage. We'll have you prosecuted. For what? For being excluded from critical meetings? For having my access revoked? For watching silently as you paraded someone else as the architect of my creation? I shook my head. The SEC might be interested in this situation, but not for the reasons you think. I opened my laptop and projected onto the meeting room screen an email I'd sent to the Securities and Exchange Commission late last night, detailing how Northbeam executives had deliberately misrepresented the company's technological readiness to investors and potential partners. You see, the real issue isn't that I failed to prevent yesterday's disaster. It's that you created conditions where disaster was inevitable, then lied to shareholders and partners about it. I closed the laptop. But that's a problem for your legal team now. My concern is the future of my company. Your company? Jeffrey sputtered. My company, I confirmed. Effective immediately, Marcus Zhang is removed as CEO of Northbeam Technologies. The board will be restructured according to the documents you're currently holding. And as for the name, I allowed myself a small smile. I think Legacy Crescent Ventures has a nice ring to it, don't you? The next few hours passed in a blur of legal discussions and corporate formalities. By mid-afternoon, the news had broken publicly. Northbeam Technologies was undergoing a strategic restructuring. Following yesterday's technical failure, Marcus had stepped down to pursue other opportunities. And Rachel Monroe, the company's long-serving chief engineer, had assumed control as CEO and chairperson. The stock, which had continued to slide overnight, stabilized and began a modest recovery as analysts cautiously approved of putting a technical expert at the helm during a technological crisis. As I settled into what had been Marcus's office, now mine, Mira brought in a resignation letter from Savannah Ellington Blake, citing unexpected mental health challenges as her reason for departing after less than 48 hours on the job. I set the letter aside, more concerned with the email that had just arrived from Volantis. Their CTO, impressed by the overnight leadership change, was cautiously open to resuming discussions, not for the full partnership initially proposed, but for a smaller pilot project that could rebuild trust. It wasn't a $2.1 billion deal, but it was a start, a foundation upon which to rebuild. As the day drew to a close, I found myself standing at the window of my new office, watching the sunset paint the city gold. The same view Marcus had enjoyed for years while I worked in the trenches. The irony wasn't lost on me. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. It was Allie Walsh, my former junior engineer, looking simultaneously nervous and determined. Ms. CEO, do you have a moment? I gestured for her to come in. It's still just Rachel. Ally. She nodded, clutching a tablet to her chest. I wanted to show you something I've been working on. A modification to the logistics system that might help with the Volantis reapproach. As she walked me through her proposal, an elegant solution to a problem I hadn't even considered, I made a decision. This is brilliant work, Ally. How would you feel about leading the technical team for the Volantis pilot? Her eyes widened. Me, but I'm just a junior engineer. So was I, once upon a time. I smiled. Consider this your promotion to Chief Technology Officer. CTO, but that's an executive position. Yes, it is. And I need executives who understand our technology from the ground up. I closed her tablet. One of my first initiatives as CEO will be establishing the Blueprint Fund, a program to support and promote engineers, particularly women, whose contributions have been overlooked. Allie's stunned expression gradually transformed into determination. I won't let you down. I know you won't. I glanced at my schedule. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a call with Evelyn Glass about restructuring our corporate governance model. After Allie left, I returned to the window, watching as lights flickered on across the city. In 24 hours, I'd gone from discarded architect to company owner, from background player to protagonist. They had tried to erase me from the story. Instead, I'd become its author. Legacy Crescent Ventures would rise from Northbeam's ashes. built on a foundation of technical excellence and ethical leadership. We wouldn't chase hollow demonstrations or empty promises. We would create technology that worked, systems that delivered, and a company culture that valued the builders as much as the deal makers. I picked up my phone and sent a text to Alex Dreyer. How would you feel about becoming our new Chief Financial Officer? His reply came seconds later. When do I start? I smiled and typed my response. Tomorrow. We have a company to rebuild. As night fell completely over the city, I finally allowed myself to feel the full weight of what had transpired. The betrayal, the vindication, the responsibility now resting on my shoulders. I had 14 years of ideas that had been suppressed, innovations that had been simplified, visions that had been compromised to fit someone else's agenda. No longer. Now I would build exactly what I believed in: ethical AI, transparent logistics, and a power structure that rewarded creation over connection. The story of Northbeam Technologies had ended at precisely 5:01 p.m. yesterday. The story of Legacy Crescent Ventures was just beginning. And this time, I was holding the pen.